everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We are so excited to have this event today. It means the world to us. Our Pathways to Work is incredible, and we work with an incredible network of partners, some of which you will hear this afternoon. And we're so excited to share this with you. My name is Angie Carr, and I'm the Vice President and Chief Impact Officer at 9PBS. All of our engagement work is anchored by what's important to the community, how we regularly convene partners around our education and our Pathways to Work. And we drive the work through our local content, our on-the-ground work, and really making a difference in making change in the community. Pathways and Future to Work have been in the progress for the last 4 years, and we have all anchored everything around our engagement model that was just explained. This initiative started as American Graduate and has moved over to Pathways to Work because we wanted to anchor what's happening here in the local community and really advance workforce development and make sure that there are diverse talent pipelines and allow all citizens to have opportunity to good quality employment. So today you're going to hear from lots of great people that will talk about how this work's happening in the community, what changes we can make, and how we can advance this work. We do have a special coming up on the state of the workforce, and it is on November 22nd at 7 p.m. So please tune in so it would advance this conversation that we're having here today. And Future of Work is another great, which is all of this conversation is anchored around. It was created by GBH, one of our sister stations nationwide. And it is really going to drive, you're going to see some clips of this content. It will drive the conversation, but then tune into the follow-up piece on November 22nd. We want to thank all of you for being in participation. We want to thank all of you for moving this conversation forward. And we want to thank our sponsors like GBH, like Bank of America, and others who are helping us do this work in the community that is so important and valuable. I'm going to now turn it over to our incredible Ruth Ezell, who has done lots of great work in this area, and we're so excited that she'll be driving this forward today. Thank you.
And thank you, Angie, and welcome everyone. Welcome to our panelists. I'd like to start by introducing them. First, we have Tiff Davis. She's the Director of Workforce and Talent Development at St. Louis Community College. Michelle Brooks, she is also with STLCC. She is a medical assistant student. And Greg Laposa is Director of Workforce Development at the St. Louis County Department of Human Services. Now, during this discussion, it's going to be broken down basically into 3 parts, each of which is going to be preceded by some of our video content, some of our PBS content. And during this entire discussion, everyone in the audience is free to submit questions. Do it in the Q&A box. We'll get to as many of them as possible. So now let's get started. We're going to begin with a story about the roundabout journey of one worker toward a job with a future.
In the military, I started off my first 5 years as a jet engine mechanic. I gained mechanical skills, electronics. Oil field, I learned hydraulic systems, hydraulic fracturing, and I carried that into school to study wind turbines.
What can I take with me? What can I port over from this industry into another?
I like working with my hands, so I figured climbing wind towers for a living and watching them go from not spinning to spinning, it's a pretty big achievement.
This can be a very dangerous industry. I take students out to the turbine so that, number one, I can see if they are capable of climbing the turbine safely. And 2, it tells them if this is something they're going to want to do for a career.
Keep all your stuff in your bag. You know, if you drop something, you know, that tower, you know, it can be dangerous.
If you drop anything, you fail your climb test.
It starts to hurt your forearms. You know, you don't got to be the tough guy. If you can't climb fast, it's okay. You I'm not gonna be climbing fast. So
Find a pace that you're comfortable with. So it's roughly a 300-foot climb up the ladder. I always have the, your kid on their first bike ride nervous. Because these are my students, so I'm always worried that I don't want anyone to get hurt.
It's my first time, so it's going to be definitely a first time experience.
Who's going first?
Moving from the military to oil and gas and then into wind turbines, that's a really exciting way to move successfully and navigate across industry domains. But it's not necessarily the easiest pathway. It's not easily navigable.
I feel that this industry is more stable. I'm able to benefit a lot more from it. If I do everything right, if I'm safe about everything, I'll have a job tomorrow.
Well, I got to tell you, that is one field that is not for the faint of heart. I'm not so sure I could definitely take that on. Juan Lopez, the man who was featured in this story, is in a field that really is relatively new. It's very much a 21st century field. And I'm just wondering from a professional standpoint, I'd like to start with a question to you, Greg, just how much you have witnessed. There's so many careers, let alone career paths, that no longer exist and they're being replaced by others. How much of that have you seen just navigating and helping people in your line of work?
Yeah, I would say that workers today have to be more nimble and flexible than ever before. And when we look at training and the educational programs that are designed to assist them, I think we have to really focus on those transferable skills. I think that was pointed out a little bit in this video too, and looking at the skills that one can take from one job or career to another, perhaps within the same industry or perhaps in a different industry. We need that transferability of skills. And employers need to be thinking more intentionally about skill-based hiring versus only looking at credential attainment, degree attainment as the proxy for one's skills and abilities. So I think that's something that we're seeing more employers thinking about that work with us in St. Louis County. More job seekers are looking to be flexible in their careers, and they're looking for the kinds of training opportunities that help them to navigate different career pathways.
Thank you. Tiff, I'm thinking that you work with a lot of employers as well as students to help make those connections.
Yes, we do. That is one of our main goals at the community college, is to get people employed. That's why people go to a community college for the most part, is because they want to upskill or get a degree or a certificate so that they can get employed. So we do work with a lot of employers, and that's one of the things that's going to strengthen that pipeline, is that we have those connections to those employers and they tell us exactly what the needs are. And we try to train to those needs so that we can fill the gaps in the workforce without having to have people to go for 4-year degrees. We can fill those gaps in a shorter period of time, get people upskilled, and then get them employed and being able to take care of their families.
Do you get a lot of inquiries from students and prospective students? They're in a job and they want to stay on that path, but they just need maybe a certificate.
Absolutely. That upskilling is what people really are looking for. Most people don't necessarily want to go back to school for another 2 or 4 years for a full degree. They just need a skill set, like Greg was talking about, that flexibility to have that additional skill set just to fill a skill gap that they might have. But they don't necessarily want to move fields or industries, but they do need that flexibility that Greg spoke about.
Well, speaking of students, I have a question for you, Michelle Brooks. How did you find yourself in the medical assistant program? What was the path that you took to get there?
So I actually have a background in criminal justice. I was, I was a paralegal, a legal assistant prior. Oh, sorry, it's kind of going slow. There we go. Okay. And then my mom actually got sick about, I want to say a year ago, and she got diagnosed with AML, which is acute myeloid leukemia. And she got diagnosed with that at the beginning of April, and she passed away in May.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. But that directed me onto this path because I've always wanted to help people. And sorry, I wasn't expecting to cry this much. Okay. But just with my criminal justice background, I've always helped people. And I've always been mindful of just not to judge people based off of what they look like, and just don't like judge a book by their cover, because you never truly know what someone's going through in their life. So the medical assistant gave me a better opportunity to help people like my mom, or just anyone who has any type of condition or anything going on with their life. I just wanted the opportunity to be a light in someone else's life and help people that have helped my mom. So yeah.
You know, it sounds like probably a lot more of your skills are transferable than you may have originally thought when you went into that program.
Yeah, actually, I found out a lot of my communication skills and listening, and I have a soft heart, so that is good and bad, but I'm very compassionate, and I have a huge passion behind this, so it's coming out in the program, and I can't wait to share everything with everyone.
Good. You're in your third year. Is it a 3-year program?
It's actually a 6-month program.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. 6 months.
Yes,
so
6 months.
What are your plans for after?
So for after, I'm actually realizing there are so many endless opportunities to just a medical assistant alone. But I am aspiring to be a nurse. I'm very interested in pediatrics. But as I'm learning all these different specialties that I can do as a medical assistant alone, I'm just blown away and trying to figure out now exactly which specialty I want to go in, because there's just one thing after another that is interesting and intertwines with one system, or like just your life in general and how words come about, and it's all very intriguing.
It certainly is. And what you're saying, it brings me to a question I have for Tiff, because I was over at STLCC on their campus in the nursing building about a month ago. I'm doing a story that you will see later in connection with another initiative that we're working on. And I'm doing a story on the dental hygienist program. And I discovered in the same thing that Michelle was talking about, there's so many more things you can do. There's so many dental hygienists who don't even work in dentist offices. So I find that amazing. And I didn't know if all of the programs, Tiff, that are being offered at STLCC have that component to them.
So thank you for the plug for the health sciences building, the new building at the Forest Park campus. We appreciate that, Ruth. So yes, there are lots of career ladders or career pathways that are offered at the community college that can lead you to other places. So depending on what your career goals are in healthcare or IT or other STEM areas, you can start at the community college with a certificate or an accelerated training in an accelerated training program, and then transfer those skills, those transferable skills, power skills, along with those technical skills. You can transfer them into other careers, but they're pathways. So to Michelle's point, you can start out as a medical assistant and then end up as a nurse because you have a skill set that you're moving from point to point in your career. So we always like to tell our students that graduate from our accelerated training programs that we hope this is not your endpoint. We want this to be your launch pad into something else that you'd like to do, because there's so many places that you could go with these skill sets. So if you start out in SIS, getting some Microsoft credentials, you could eventually move into an IT career pathway. Or if you start out in our medical assistant program, you could eventually end up doing our registered nursing program. But we want people to feel empowered after they get those skills to do something else with them.
And they can get more skills and work at the same time, which is probably the best part.
Yes, we love the earn and learn model. We love employers that want to connect and fill gaps. And we know that from our State of the St. Louis workforce report that 94% of employers are willing to train people on the job. So what we employ employers to do is that if you're willing to train people on the job, that means they're getting paid. Why not pay them while they're being trained? So while they're getting the skill, pay them, because who can afford to take 6 to 20 weeks off of work without income, right? So you pay them, you get the workforce you need with the very specific skill sets you say you need, and then you have an employee ready to just go into the workforce immediately.
Greg, I am wondering, are there any specific job or career areas where employers are saying, hey, help me find some people to fill these spots, to fill these jobs?
I would say many employers across all industries in the region are looking for workers right now. If you look at local data and national data, the industries that are currently hardest hit are in retail, hospitality, food service industry. And there's been a lot of, if you've been looking at, newspapers, again, locally or nationally, you'll see that there's a lot of concerns among workers about wages, around safety, health and safety, that's driving kind of folks to reconsider careers if they're in those industries. And so employers have to be adaptable too. And I think another thing that we're seeing is more workers, when they're looking for job opportunities, are wanting work remote capabilities. They're wanting a more flexible work environment. Partly that's rooted in some of the health and safety concerns as we still wrestle with this pandemic. But they've also seen, what can be done as a result of the pandemic, and a lot of companies moving to that kind of model. And so they're seeing more opportunities to negotiate that as a condition of their employment. And I think employers have to think about how they structure their workplace, how they structure the future of work to account for that significant desire among people. But I would say it's across all industries, Ruth. It's hard to point to one in particular, but I would say that the data is very clear on which industries right now are being the hardest hit. And there's factors that are influencing folks that are in those industries to reconsider other opportunities.
Well, I gotta say, as a casual observer, it seems like now more than any other time in our history that workers seem to be somewhat in the driver's seat right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say it's a historic time for workers. There is again a lot. I think if you saw the latest jobs report that was released for September, I think 4.4 million workers quit their job and are looking for another opportunity. And so again, there's opportunities to negotiate. You're seeing more companies offering higher wages. You're seeing companies that historically didn't offer above $15 an hour now offering between $17 and $20 an hour for jobs within their companies. And so that's even as we wrestle with inflation, you're seeing wages, going up at least during this time right now. And you hope to see that continue, because I think when we look at the opportunity to create a more equitable community and the opportunity to really support people being able to provide for their families, you have to look at wages, and that's always been the case. But I think workers are really putting that issue front and center, and ensuring that employers see that if they don't have the wages that are attractive to them, they're going to find other options. And it may be, again, in this unique moment, but I think it'll be ongoing.
Indeed. In fact, equity is the topic of the next segment of our discussion. So let's take a look at another story that looks at the issue of equity from the lens of the gig economy.
Not all short-term jobs are low paid.
TaskRabbit is an app and a website that connects taskers and clients to do odd jobs, which we call tasks. Anything from furniture assembly to errands to organization. I'm Chloe. For 4 years, I've used TaskRabbit. From my side, as a tasker, I would open the app and mark off my availability. And then hopefully I get a client who books me in that time. They describe the task that they want done, how long they think it would take, and then book them on the schedule and then show up.
There is a new gig economy fueled by technological advancements. It operates through digital platforms like Uber, Lyft, and TaskRabbit.
The gig worker has grown out of the use of company platforms. What the person is doing is looking for customers. What the platform is doing is linking them to customers.
What I love about TaskRabbit is that it's really flexible. I set my own schedule, I set my own rates. I know what I'm agreeing to.
For both clients and workers, there are no long-term obligations. When the job is done, the relationship is over.
Work and the way that we see work is changing. It's no longer this rigid 9 to 5 idea. It's a lot more flexible, and apps definitely give you that sense of freedom and flexibility. Any spare time you have, you can start earning income during those times, which is definitely different from your traditional, I have one job and that's the only basis of income.
Today, more than 55 million Americans work in the gig economy. For some like Chloe, it provides flexibility and freedom. For others, it introduced even more financial insecurity.
So there's almost two Americas that exist right now. This America that feels basically safe and can think about things besides paying their bills, and an America that is constantly afraid. And so for those people, the gig economy is not liberation, it's just survival. It's a way to make ends meet when your regular job has already failed you.
The work is being further fragmented in terms of part-time, full-time, independent contractors, gig work. Part of the people are saying, well, isn't this great? People have more freedom. On the other hand, I'd like to talk to them after 5 or 10 years to see where they are economically when they have no health insurance and no pension.
John Russo, I'm with you. I am so glad I'm not beginning my career at this time, because without my pension, I don't think I could even think about retiring right now. Did this number that they mentioned in this story strike you as a surprise? Because it did to me. 55 million Americans work in the gig economy. That is a humongous percentage. Let me ask you, Tiff, Greg, I'll ask this to both of you. Are those people in the gig economy, I'm assuming some of those have a side hustle and that they're not just relying on gig economy work, or do you know?
So I think that some of them are. And I think that that goes back to what Greg was saying about workers being able to demand higher wages because they have this alternate income that they're able to get. When you're in an Uber, a driver will tell you, oh, on a good night running from the airport, I can make $500 in a few hours. So I think the gig economy is fueling some people to be able to take care of themselves and not necessarily go back to the 9 to 5 traditional workplace setting. And I think that's what employers are competing with, this idea of the team of me or the business of me. I can make money via so many different apps, so many different platforms. I can do driving. I can run errands for folk. I can make money and not have to deal with the issues that come with the workplace, not feeling valued, organizational culture, lots of things. So yeah, there is the minus of there might be an insurance issue or pension issue later, but for now, am I able to take care of myself and my family? And do I have freedom that I've never had before? Absolutely. So I think that's what employers need to be careful of, is realizing that they're competing with individuals rather than other companies. They're competing with people being able to take control and be empowered to make money for themselves.
Yeah. I am wondering though, Greg, it would seem to me, if you are going to be successful in the gig economy, one skill you need probably more than anything is discipline.
Right. Yeah, no, I would think so. I would think so too. Discipline and being able to market your skills, because I think that you become kind of you do become your own business essentially in a lot of ways. You're an entrepreneur. You have to implement your own business model. You have to market your services and draw in clients and customers, which makes it in some ways maybe a disadvantage for some that might not want to spend so much time drumming up their clientele. And just be able to work at a predictable set of hours, each day. And so I think what the story that we just watched really points out are some things that employers can take away from that are lessons of the individuals who have chosen gig work. And that's flexibility, autonomy, and passion. The folks that are in gig work are able to control their workflow, and that's an attractive feature. They're able to have flexibility when they work. And how and where they work and how they work, and they're able to pursue their own passions. We saw Michelle's passion very, very clear, and that's a skill too, right? And that's something that employers have to see in their workforce, and they have to create an environment in their workplace that cultivates those things if they want to compete for workers, especially if they're competing against the opportunities that technology has provided for folks to do gig work. But one thing it gives me some pause was the point that she made. The person in the video, she said, any spare time you have could be an opportunity to generate income. And on the one hand, that sounds attractive, but on the other hand, it's a critical right now, as you're seeing more people kind of moving into this online, mostly virtual work environment. There's some burnout occurring for workers because they're always on too. And if you look at every minute as an opportunity to generate income, it can take away from other things that workers are valuing. So that's where, again, a more stable, predictable job with benefits might be more attractive for some who don't, going back to your original point, Ruth, who maybe don't want to practice the discipline to be able to control and structure their workday in a way that doesn't creep into their personal life and dominate their existence, right?
Right. So Michelle, how do you juggle time and keep yourself disciplined and on track and avoid burnout?
That is a great question. So actually, my passion does come out in the program because when I was younger, I never liked science. That was not my strong subject. Yeah, so it's kind of ironic that I'm in the medical field now, but I'm excelling in it. So I just start my days. The program is Monday through Friday. And it's from Monday through Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. But then you do, that's in person. So I'm in a classroom. And I have about, I say, 9 or 10 other girls in the classroom with me. And then I have online coursework from about 1 o'clock until 5 o'clock. And then, and then Fridays I have lab days, and that's from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So that's more hands-on and like training for what to expect in the doctor's office.
Sounds like you have everything under control. Do you keep your eye on developments in the way the entire healthcare field is evolving? Because I mean, you yourself could end up being an entrepreneur.
Right. And and now that you say that, when I got asked for this opportunity to do the panel, I never thought of it that way, as being my own like marketing self, as Greg was talking about, and everyone else. Like, it is true. You just put yourself out there, and you take with you, like, from every job that I've had, like even in the medical field, I'm finding out that, like I said, my communication skills and just the passion, and I'm finding out that I am loving the medical field and that I can do this, and I just take the time to do what needs to be done, and I'm loving it. So
Well, I'm so glad. I'm really happy for you too.
Thank you.
There was a comment in the story by the labor historian, Louis Hyman, who said, he was talking about the two Americas and the growing gap, the people doing fine and people that aren't. Is there a danger that gap could widen? Tiff or Gregory, do you have, it's an opportunity to actually close the gap, but it could also, it seems like it could just as easily go in the opposite direction. Oh, you're on mute, Tiff.
Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say, I think that when you look at issues around gaps, disparities, equity especially, a lot of this is influenced by policy too. And you can't look at only employers and workers and isolated from the policy environment that we all exist within, the society that we live within, right? And so when you look at employment outcomes, you look at access to housing, you look at wealth disparities, you look at a lot of folks who are right now have an edge in the economy. I noted earlier, we need to have more employers looking at skills-based hiring, but it's still true that on average, the more education you have, the more lifetime earnings you have. And that wealth in the way that it's been accumulated and passed on historically in our society has benefited from, or has not, I should say in many ways, has not benefited from policies that have disproportionately reinforced, disparities along racial lines, especially in terms of home ownership. And so these are all things that when you look at, workers today, they're looking for a benefit, many who will have an edge, also, have access to good benefits and especially healthcare. And healthcare is fundamentally impacted by the policies that we have in place in this country and in our state. And so, you have to keep that, I guess, that bigger picture in mind as you look at what contributes to these gaps and what contributes to opportunities. There's an opportunity to close it, but we got to wrestle with some of the policy solutions that are necessary to create an environment that, ensures more opportunity for people.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are a lot of gig workers, a lot of unemployed workers right now who could really use some help with their student debt. Have you, either of you, Tiff or Gregory, been dealing with people that are looking for these other jobs, but they're saying, look, I'm just drowning in debt. And I know that's a policy issue. And I know neither of you have any control over that, but is that anything that employers, prospective employers have even reached out about? Because the debt is just really, it could choke us as badly as the housing crisis did.
What I find in relation to the debt is that employers are mindful of it when it comes to the future of the workforce. They are looking forward to empowering folk to get into the workforce without accumulating that debt, and looking forward to giving folks the opportunities to work in organizations and do jobs they love without having to be buried under the debt or work just because they have to pay the debt. So I do see employers are more mindful of the skill sets that they think that people need, and they understand that every time that skill set doesn't necessarily have to come with 4 years worth of debt. And I wanted to make sure that we mention, to Greg's point about policies and things that keep the system and the structure in place that oppresses people, is that student loans are a part of that. They highly contribute to people being forced into employment that they don't necessarily get joy from or are able to afford their bills. But we were told for the past 40 years that you need a 4-year degree. You have to do this in order to level up in the system, right? Particularly Black people, brown people in this country were told that in order to get halfway there, you got to do double the work. So you have to at least get a master's degree, right? So you have people with so much debt because they felt like they had to get it because there was a system in place that for others, it was so easy for them to get into the workforce. But for other folk, they had to do the work and do that heavy lift of having those degrees. And now it doubles down on the oppression, right? Because I did what the system told me I had to do. And now I'm suffering because of it, because I have the degrees that they said I needed, but I also have the debt associated with it.
Yes, we have an audience question here. With the job market as it is, do any of you believe it would help if employers created more hybrid models? So more flex time to attract skilled workers?
Yeah, I think so. I think that as employers really look at that flex time, though, they have to be mindful of how to structure that, right? Because we all think that kind of hybrid models, or even just allowing an extremely flexible work environment, or being able to choose your work setting, is something that more workers are demanding. But then there's also this issue that we're starting to see where those who are not reporting in the office, if they have a choice to work remotely, are maybe being passed up on promotional opportunities, or maybe not being able to advance in their careers because they're not there in front of folks, and their work is not getting as much attention, perhaps because they're not working on site, and they have the opportunity to build the relationships and do the networking that's necessary in some cases to move up within a company. So companies have to think about that factor and the possibility of that blind spot, that when you're structuring work environment, you want to make sure that it's equitable, that everyone has an opportunity to have their work known, and that there's promotional opportunities even for those who maybe aren't always on site at the workplace, because that's starting to become an issue that I think workers are concerned about, and employers are starting to recognize in this kind of environment that we're in.
We've got one more section we want to talk about, and we're going to introduce that with one more video from a former colleague of mine. She is currently a community reporter for the PBS NewsHour. Her name is Gabrielle Hayes. I'm so proud of her. Her story focuses on the work of a local organization that connects people with jobs, but it's really just the start of their mission. Here's the story.
Eugene Stubblefield is really happy with life.
I was going to see somebody. They weren't there. And a lady just came out and was just like, before you go, I know of this good program, and you never know. She was like, just give it a try.
She handed him a flyer, and on it was information about Mission St. Louis, a local workforce development program. But for Eugene, it was the key to a fresh start. That piece of paper and the one for a new beginning led him to Jason Watson. He's the executive director, and while the group's mission started with education, it would transform into something much bigger.
What we realized is that if we really wanted to impact kids, we needed to impact the entire family. We began to build relationships with those students. We started to build relationships with the parents, which then led to what's now called our Beyond Jobs program, which focuses on workforce development.
So far, Mission STL has helped more than 500 people get jobs. But for Watson, it's less about handing people a job application and more about treating people as people.
I met Eugene, man. It's been about 4 years. And it's interesting because Eugene has always been just a solid dude. Like, some people you meet and it's just an instant vibe and energy. You could tell by the time that he had made it to us, he had different situations that had taken place in his life and brought him to a certain point.
So what brought Eugene to Mission STL? Well, like anyone, he says he has his own story.
So I was going through personal and legal and family situations. And I wasn't being responsible enough to step up to the plate and live a life that was deserving.
Eugene now has a job at a paper company.
If I could just go back 5 years and just tell myself that day, I would say, man, aren't you glad you didn't put that piece of paper down? That's the first thing I could look at him and say, like, glad you didn't put that piece of paper down, aren't you? And I look right back at him and say, you better know.
And living is what he plans to do.
I'm alive, but I want to live too. I love that I got a purpose now. You know what I'm saying?
A purpose he credits to his friend, Jason. Now he wants to look out for others. And if he could share any bit of advice, he'd say this.
And I hope that I can be an inspiration for some of my guys who's still going through things and who's still in the neighborhoods and who's still struggling and trying to find a way. If they see this, here I go. Whenever they need me, and I'm giving them my word that every day I get best that I can to be that example that they knew I could be.
For Living St. Louis, I'm Gabrielle Hayes.
I really like that story because it's not just about somebody who found a job, it's somebody who says, I'm going to pay it forward. And it just touches on the area of relationships, building relationships. That seems to be a really key factor on the road to wherever it is you want to get. Tiff, do you find yourself having to teach people soft skills as part of their journey, their path to work?
Sure, that is one of the components in all of our accelerated job training programs, that idea that work is technical skills, but most employers say they're willing to teach the technical skills if you come with the work ethic, the communication skills, the conflict resolution. Are you going to be on time? And I think in addition to teaching those skills or training for those skills, we also need to be mindful of the support that people need to be able to get trained and go to work. And I think that's why the work of Mission St. Louis is so important, because they don't just get people to work, they also support them while they're going to work. So that could be things like transportation, childcare, resources to get outfits for job interviews. I think it's a package. Workforce development is a holistic approach, and we'll never get there if we just say, here are the jobs, right? Or here's the training. We get there by saying, here are the jobs, here's the training, here's the support that the people need, and then we can get the system working the way it's supposed to work to support the people.
What are the biggest barriers facing the people? Gregory, could you chime in on that?
Yep. So I would say that based on the job seekers that we serve, and we're looking to connect to resources that help them on their path to employment, that we often see the top barriers as being childcare, transportation. Those are in a number of ways still digital access. Access to the technology that's necessary to conduct their job searches, to get themselves ready for an interview, to participate in interviews today that now become increasingly more virtual. And so those are issues that need to be addressed. I know my colleagues across our regional workforce system in St. Clair, Madison County, St. Louis City, St. Charles County, Jefferson, Franklin counties would all say the same thing, is that those are some key barriers. To Tiff's point, it's not just looking at skills. Skills is one piece of workforce development, but we have to think more holistically. And what you see about Mission St. Louis and other organizations like that, and our public workforce system and community college all starting to look at is how do we ensure that we're not just supporting the individuals in front of us, but that we're also creating resources for them and their families too, and that we're addressing these barriers, because we can't address our workforce shortages without looking at the bigger picture issues. And some of those are influenced by policy. I don't want to take us back there necessarily, but that's a big piece of this too, is that's creating a lot of the barriers too. Bad policy in the past, racist policy in the past, policy that promotes that has promoted inequity in the past, is created the system that we have where a lot of these are barriers that still need to be addressed.
I think you keep talking about policies because you do communicate with lawmakers about these issues?
I think it's more because that's as I moved, I started my career as an educator, then I worked for the St. Louis Regional Chamber, now I'm in St. Louis County government. I think that's kind of the thread that I've seen that influences a lot of the opportunities that we have in our society. It is fundamentally policy. Ford through Ferguson locally has reminded us all that we're not going to move forward as a region unless we really grapple with the policy implications. So again, there's a lot that we can do, and I think we can influence policy too, but we got to keep in mind the ways that policy shapes it. So it's really more just, I think, seeing that we operate within a bigger picture context.
So if those in our audience, where do they start? If they want a change, if they're in need of a job, what's the most effective process? What's the best starting point for anybody who just says, I do want to make a change. I hear what you guys are saying, but I'm just kind of lost. Where should they start? Or maybe it should just start with going to St. Louis Community College and looking at the course offerings. Would you agree, Tiff?
Definitely. Thank you, Ruth. You are a great ambassador for the community college. But that's what my suggestion would be, to go to the community college's website, find a training provider, see what the offerings are, go out to a career center. If you go to a job center, they know all the resources. They know where the training programs are. They know how you can get it paid for. They have supportive services for you. So if you go out to a job center, they can help get you those resources. If you look at the community college's website, you can actually see what the program offerings are, how long things will take. But again, it's the system working together to get people employed. So there's so many places that people can look, but I would definitely say connect with your local job center, and they have the resources there, and they can get you to St. Louis Community College into one of our training programs.
Ruth, if I could just interject and thank Tiff for that plug for the job centers. We operate a job center in St. Louis County at 715 Northwest Plaza. There's job centers located throughout the bi-state area in the city of St. Louis, again in St. Charles County, and on the Illinois side as well. There's access points for thousands of job seekers who are coming into these facilities to meet with staff. To your point, Ruth, about relationships, it's about meeting with someone who can help advise you and help to assess your skills, and then help you to find the resources that you need to get on a path to training. And the job centers also, as Tiff noted, have resources. So the issue around debt, if you want to gain new skills, and you might fall within income parameters that make you eligible for a WIOA funded program, which is federally funded program, you could be eligible for tuition assistance to be able to pursue the training that you need at St. Louis Community College or other institutions without incurring debt. And so that's a great access point and opportunity for folks as well.
I see a plug from Camille Hogan too, so I'm going to read it. Camille, young people ages 14 to 24 can go to STL Youth Jobs for job readiness training, paid work-based experiences to help them navigate future career paths and get hands-on experience with local employers. And why not? I'm going to give you the web address. It is stlyouthjobs.org. That's stlyouthjobs.org. I am going to, let's see, I think we might have another question here. Well, it looks more like a statement than a question. Jim, I'm going to read this really quickly. One point, both the speakers talked about what they liked, and you say you like to work with your hands, you like to help people. Skills are necessary, but helping people find careers like that is even more important. The first job doesn't have to be a career. Well, that is very true. Could be a stepping stone, but the problem is getting stuck, I think, Jim, on that path. It can be a challenge to take a job on the way to a career and get stuck in the job. So, but I see your point, Jim. Anybody care to add to his comments? Okay, here's what we're going to do. There is going to be on the 22nd, a special, Living St. Louis special. It is the future of work. And I do a story in that as well. And it addresses all these work-related issues. Megan, if we have that promo, let's show it.
The 2021 State of the St. Louis Workforce Report is out, and it outlines our region's business climate, hiring trends, and skill demands.
Time management, being present, being on time, and staying on task. So work ethic is extremely important.
We take a look at what's needed for a strong economic recovery post-COVID on Living St. Louis, Pathways to Work. Tune in or stream Monday night at 7 on 9 PBS.
So for those of you in our audience, I hope you can tune in Monday on the 22nd. It may give you some additional inspiration for directions in which you want to go. And I would like to thank my panelists, Tiff Davis, Michelle Brooks, and Gregory Laposa. Thanks to our partners in our Pathways to Work initiatives and all our initiatives devoted to improving the state of our economy and our world. I'm Ruth Ezell. Thank you all so much for joining us. You have a wonderful afternoon and a wonderful holiday. Thanks.